Hello, you are watching Shalom World News. I'm Rudy McLennan coming to you from Glasgow, Scotland. Here are the latest headlines from around the world. Pope Francis received a rousing reception at Sakhir Airbase in Bahrain's Awali on Thursday evening as he began his 4-day apostolic visit to the Persian Gulf island nation. At the terminal, the Holy Father was received by the ruler King Hamad bin Isa al Khalifa and other high-ranking cabinet officials and military top brass. The Pope was accompanied by Cardinal Pietro Parolin, the Vatican Secretary of State, Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, the Secretary of Relations with States, Cardinal Kurt Koch of the Dicastery for Promoting Christian Unity, Cardinal Luis Antonio Tagle of the Congregation for the Evangelization of Peoples, and Cardinal Michael Ayuso Guixot of the Dicastery for Interreligious Dialogue. At the terminal, high-ranking cabinet members greeted the Pope, while the papal entourage and other prelates greeted the King as per protocol. From the terminal, the Pope was taken to Sakhir Royal Palace for the official welcome ceremony. And the papal address to government dignitaries, members of civil society and members of the diplomatic corps. On the way, hundreds of people, including children, hailed the pontiff waving papal flags and chants. There were also traditional dances with swords and rifles rendered by men in ethnic attire to the accompaniment of drums and percussion instruments. In an exclusive interview with Shalom World, the administrator of the Apostolic Vicariate of Northern Arabia, Bishop Paul Hinder, said that the papal visit will give a message to expatriate believers that they are not forgotten. He said that they will get the message that they are important as members of the Church who live their Christian witness in a particular situation.
Yeah, for the believers in Bahrain, and I think beyond that, in the whole Vicariate of the Northern Arabia, it is an encouragement. You know, many of our people, they are feeling sometimes a little bit forgotten or even abandoned because they are migrants. They have most of them no citizenship here. They don't count very much on the world map. And now, seeing the Pope in their midst will be surely an experience. We are not forgotten. We have our importance as faithful, as people who live their Christian witness in a particular situation. And I think that in itself is something which fills also me as bishop with joy.
The bishop expressed hope that the visit of Pope Francis to Bahrain can be a step forward in fostering ties with nearby Saudi Arabia, where non-Muslim worship is not allowed. Even if he cannot cross the bridge this time, he is a bridge builder, and one day it will happen. The bishop was expressing hope of Saudi Arabia allowing public Christian worship in the country. He also said that there was a possibility of more churches coming up in the Vicariate. On the second day of his apostolic voyage to Bahrain, Pope Francis will take part in the closing ceremony of the Bahrain Forum for Dialogue, East and West for Human Coexistence at the Al-Fida Square of Sakhir Royal Palace in Manama. This will be followed by a private meeting with the Grand Imam Ahmed El Tayeb of Al-Azhar in the papal residence. The Holy Father will also hold an audience with the members of the Muslim Council of Elders. Afterwards, Pope Francis will hold an ecumenical meeting and prayer for peace in Our Lady of Arabia Cathedral in Awali. The pontiff landed in the country on November the 3rd and was given a rousing reception. He's the first Roman pontiff to travel to Bahrain. The 4-day visit will conclude on November the 6th. Bishop Paolo Martinelli, the Vicar Apostolic of Southern Arabia, said that the pontiff's visit would deepen harmony among the people in the land of mixed ethnicity and religions. The prelate had shared his hopes in an interview with Vatican media while awaiting the papal visit to the Persian Gulf nation. Expressing his joy over Pope Francis's second visit to the Arabian Peninsula, the prelate said that a door to interfaith dialogue was opened at the signing of the document on human fraternity that the Holy Father and Ahmad al-Tayyib, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, in 2019 signed. The prelate added that a papal visit to Bahrain is crucial for getting to know one another as representatives of other spiritual traditions and religious beliefs, and for eradicating preconceptions and misconceptions about various religions. On the other hand, the invitation to converse on fundamental anthropological experiences aids in encouraging a conversation among individuals of all religions about human reality. Pope Francis urged people to nourish expectation of heaven by focusing on the encounter with God during the Mass of the commemoration of the faithful departed on November the 2nd. The Holy Father said the best careers, the greatest successes, the most prestigious titles and awards, accumulated riches and earthly gains will all be lost after death. The Pope presided over the traditional Eucharistic celebration of suffrage for the cardinals and bishops who died last year in St. Peter's Basilica. Pope Francis later went to the Teutonic Cemetery for a moment of prayer and commemoration of the faithful departed. He stopped in silent prayer after blessing the tombs with holy water. The Diocese of Winona-Rochester in the United States reported that the Calvary Cemetery in Rochester was vandalized on Halloween night, with several graves being defiled with disgusting words and obscene graffiti. Bishop Robert Barron of Winona-Rochester slammed the act of vandalism. The prelate expressed his outrage over the desecration of the cemetery and assured his prayers for the families of those souls whose resting places were disgraced. The Diocese of Winona-Rochester, in connection with the police department, is working to find the culprit. The cemetery staff is also trying to repair and restore the damaged graves. The bishop promised to bless the cemetery once the restoration works are completed. Churches across South Korea held masses for the more than 300 people who were killed or injured in a stampede during a Halloween celebration. Archbishop Peter Chung-Soon-Taik of Seoul said he is praying for the 156 revelers who died and for the authorities involved. The victims were mostly young people. Many were crushed and suffocated, while others fell and were trampled upon. The prelate said that he was praying for the victims and for their families. In a statement, he expressed hope that such a tragedy will not be repeated anymore. The disaster unfolded when thousands of revelers gathered in the narrow streets in the Itaewon district of Seoul. There was little or no crowd control, leading to the stampede. The number of children forced to flee their homes to escape violence in Myanmar has surpassed 500,000, with a rapid escalation in displacements this year. So said the charity Save the Children. In a report released on November the 1st, the charity said more than 1.4 million people have been displaced by conflict in Myanmar, with 1.1 million forced to flee since the escalation of violence in February of 2021. Of the total 407,000 children displaced since then, about 63%, or 257,000, have been displaced in the past 9 months alone. The report said that many displaced families in Myanmar are living in makeshift shelters in the jungle and are vulnerable to hunger, illness, and face risks to their safety, like trafficking and exploitation. These figures serve as a warning to the world that children's lives remain under threat daily, nearly 2 years after the military ousted the elected civilian government. Pope Francis announced on November the 1st that he intends to visit the Democratic Republic of Congo and South Sudan early in February of next year. The 85-year-old pontiff had planned a trip in June, but had to postpone it due to health concerns. The doctor forbade me to do so. Today I can walk with a cane, but I can. So said the Holy Father during a video conference meeting with African students. The Pope visited Canada from July the 24th to the 30th, then Kazakhstan in November, along with November's trip to Bahrain. The Pope made this announcement while speaking at an event titled Building Bridges Across Africa, a synodal encounter between Pope Francis and African university students. It was organised by the Pan-African Catholic Theology and Pastoral Network, the Pontifical Commission for Latin America, the Center for World Catholicism and Intercultural Theology, Loyola University Chicago, and DePaul University. On Wednesday, the Patriarch of the Armenian Catholic Church awarded Hungary Prime Minister Viktor Orban with the St. Cross Medal for his support for persecuted Christians around the world. The award was handed over in Carmelita, a former Catholic monastic residence that is now the seat of the Hungarian Prime Minister. Governmental agency Hungary Helps works to support persecuted Christians. It is a non-profit organisation with the backing of the Prime Minister's office, and it was started during his tenure. According to the Hungarian government's website, the agency's task is to ensure the rapid and effective provision of assistance to persecuted Christians and victims of humanitarian catastrophes. It also contributes to Hungary's international efforts to eradicate the root causes of migration through direct local assistance. The Archdiocese of Managua has reported that Cardinal Leopoldo José Brenes Solorzano made a pilgrimage to the tomb of St. Francis of Assisi in Italy on November the 1st and prayed for the people of Nicaragua, the bishops, priests and religious there. On the same day, he also visited the tomb of St. Clare, which is also in the same town. The Archbishop's visit to the saint's tomb was part of his Vatican visit on October the 30th as part of the Latin American Episcopal Council delegation and to have a private audience with Pope Francis. During the meeting, the pontiff urged the pastors in Nicaragua to be messengers of reconciliation and of hope. The Pope also expressed solidarity with Nicaraguans. Suspected al-Shabaab militants have abducted 4 people in northeastern Kenya, close to the Somalia border. According to a police statement, the suspects attacked an ambulance belonging to the Regional County Administration of Mandera. The abducted individuals are 2 paramedics from the Lafe Sub-County Hospital, a patient and an ambulance driver. The police report the hostages were driven towards Somalia. For over a decade, the terror group affiliated with Al-Qaeda has been battling to overthrow the Somalian government to install its system of governance based on Islamic Sharia law. Hundreds of civilians and security personnel were killed and hundreds were internally displaced during this time. Al-Shabaab militants conducted twin car bomb blasts in Mogadishu recently, killing at least 120 people. Pope Francis has been urged by the family members of Bahrain's death row convicts to condemn the human rights violations and the poor treatment of prisoners during his visit to the Persian Gulf country, urging the Holy Father to speak out against the death penalty and support political prisoners. The families requested the same through an open letter published by the Bahrain Institute for Rights and Democracy. Since a 2011 anti-government uprising, Bahrain has detained thousands of demonstrators, journalists and activists, some of whom were subjected to mass trials. The letter, written by the families of 12 death row convicts, stated that many were detained for participating in the pro-democracy protests during the Arab Spring. The family members also decried that despite the unjustified convictions, many detained face the risk of execution. And those are your latest headlines. Do join us again tomorrow for more. And do remember, you can also visit swnews.org for more updates. Shalom.